Well, good morning, everyone. This is Meditation for Lawyers. I'm George Felos. This is not mediation for lawyers. So if you are a mediator and you mistook this for mediation for lawyers, I'm sorry. Invariably, we have one or two mediators sign up for this, but I hope you will stay with us for the seminar. And this is also not medication for lawyers. Unfortunately, we are not authorized to disperse any medication. However, we have had reports of attendees who, let's say, feel good because they've had increased endorphin production at the end of the hour. So welcome so much. Okay. So we're here after an interruption. We give our webinars every other month. We had one scheduled for July, and our apologies to those who signed up for July and had to cancel and redo for today. We've encountered some technical difficulties. We switched over to a new website, but we're delighted to be back here this morning with you. I'm here with my collaborator, Chelsea Turner. Chelsea, say hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Chelsea. And thank you for attending. We have attorneys around the country. Good morning to those of you in Oregon and California, and to you on the West Coast. Thank you for sharing your midday with us. So these are challenging times for all of us, whether it's practicing law, and as a litigator myself, it's a challenging enough career. And we all know the stressors we have as attorneys. And in the age of COVID and disruption and family disruptions, it's been an added challenge for us. And it makes it even more important to be able to relax and to restore and to revive. So our goal here today is to directly encounter the source, the core, your center. People have a lot of different names for that, your essence. And it's from that essence that peace and happiness, well-being, rest, rejuvenation comes. Now, what makes it, you may say, well, I can go on a vacation and rest. If I win the lottery, I'm happy. What is it that is so important about being able to directly access that core, that center? And the reason is that the peace and happiness that emanates from that source or core and center is not situational. It's not dependent upon any external circumstance. We try to arrange our lives to make all the external circumstances as pleasant as we can and as easy as we can. But life always throws us curveballs. By the way, the reason I'm wearing a hat, I want to show you, I had a significant encounter with a concrete step yesterday. That's why I'm wearing a hat. I didn't want to distract you with it. But life always presents bumps on the head. Family, relationships, children, illness, death of a loved one. In other words, the happiness we derive from situations is always conditional, but it's the joy, contentment, peace that derives from the source that is not situational. That's what makes it so valuable. And that's why developing the skill through meditation to do that is so important. It's to say it another way. Of course, anger arises, but that which is aware of the anger is not angry itself. Discord may come up in our life, but that which is aware into which discord arises is always at peace. So the vehicle by which we're going to do that, directly encounter that source, that core, is meditation. That's why you're here today, to meditate. And I will stop talking fairly soon, and we will be meditating today. So our goal is to teach you how to meditate, directly encounter that source, that core. And the goal is to give you enough of a foundation so you're able to meditate on your own. If you haven't meditated before, to start your own meditation practice, or if you have meditated before, to restart that or give you a boost in that. Now, let me say a couple things about meditation at the onset. Meditation is not about stopping your thoughts. And I'll repeat that because that's so important. It's not about stopping your thoughts. I know so many people, and because I've taught meditation for decades, who come up to me and say, my friends meditate, they love it. I've tried, but I just can't stop my mind. I mean, my mind continually, batters me with this thought and that thought and this sensation and that sensation. How do you ever stop that? It's impossible. And so if you believe meditation is about stopping your mind or stopping your thoughts, then it's going to be an exercise in frustration. So let me give you kind of a metaphor of what our approach is and what we're going to be doing today. Imagine you're in a museum and there is a big landscape from an old master. Now, there's a foreground and there's a background. Now, when you look at that painting, our attention is naturally drawn to the foreground. Why is that? It's because the figures are bigger in relation to the background. It's in more detail. Something's happening. There's a story happening in the foreground, so our attention is naturally drawn there. Now, if you're looking at that painting and you want to notice the background, you don't have to eradicate the foreground. You don't have to paint over the foreground to notice the background. All you have to do is shift your focus. And in that shift of focus, you notice the background. So in meditation, we're not getting rid of anything. And in that metaphor, the foreground is our thoughts, our sensations, our sense perceptions, the stories we create about them, what's going on, the voice in your head. The background is that source, that center, that core. So we don't, in order to directly encounter in a more knowing way that source, that center, that core that's available to you all the time, you don't have to get rid of the foreground. It's just a de-emphasis a little bit, or somebody in more technical way saying, we identify less with what's happening on the surface than what's happening at a deeper level. Okay, one other thing I wanted to get straight here. There is no personality type or no type of person that is particularly suited to meditation. The only thing you need to meditate is interest. And obviously you have the interest in meditation because you're here. It's like playing poker. I don't know if there are any poker players out there. The only currency to play poker, and you can sit down at a table with the best poker players and pros in the world, is money. You sit down at the table, you can play with them. What's going to happen, I don't know, but you can play with them. The only currency to meditate is interest in it. And so you're halfway there because obviously you're interested in this meditation. So a couple of technical things before we start, and let me, just to allay any concerns, I'm not going to say, okay, close your eyes and I'll check in with you a half hour later. We're going to do 3 meditations today, and they'll each be maybe about 7 minutes long, about then 5 to 7 minutes long. They'll be with instruction. They'll be with instruction before the meditation. So we're going to do it in segments. I'm going to lead you along the way. So I'm not going to just drop you off somewhere. So this is a 1.5 credit hour CLE. We are certified or accredited in Oregon and in Florida. We're New York eligible. We'll send you after the webinar to the New York attendees. We'll send you an email. You send us our bar number, and we'll send you your certificate, which will allow you to get your New York credits. We're going to have, after an hour, questions and answers that may last 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Sometimes they've lasted an hour. So after the hour and 15 minutes that we're technically scheduled for, I mean, if you have to leave, that's fine. You'll get a recording. You can see it all later. You'll be entitled to your CLE credit. But I encourage you to stay for the questions and answers because a lot does come up. Now, there's a couple ways to ask questions. One is on the Zoom, you can have a Q&A box. So you can write your questions. You can raise your hand, and that means that you can speak your question or be seen asking your question. So if questions arise during the webinar, I would suggest that or during the actual meditation, I would wait until the meditation is over and and we're back into talking again to write your question so you don't interrupt the meditation. If you have anything technical that comes up, then please, you can put that in the chat box, and Chelsea monitors that. You know, you need us to send you the link again or something like that. And now, let's talk a little bit about your place. And by that I mean, hopefully you've selected a place that is relatively quiet and where you won't be disturbed. So if you are in your office, I suggest putting your phone on mute, telling your assistant not to interrupt you during this time. If you're at home, hopefully you're in a relatively quiet place to minimize distraction. If you have your cell phone on, please shut it, put it in a drawer. If you have your breakfast out in the West Coast, or you have your cheesesteak Philly sub on the East Coast and you were going to have lunch, my suggestion is put that aside. You can wait an hour to eat. Really give yourself the opportunity to delve into this without the distraction of having a meal at the same time. Now, let's talk a little bit about the outer posture of meditation. So you want to be relaxed. In other words, if your shoulders are scrunched up, just kind of relax your shoulders, Just might want to turn your head a little bit, just have that relax. Be in a seated position with your, with your spine relatively erect, but you're comfortable, your feet flat on the floor. Now, there's nothing magical or mystical about that. You can meditate standing up. You can meditate lying down. It's just that if you meditate lying down, the body associates that with rest and sleep, so you may find yourself nodding off. So the tips that I gave you for the outer posture is just to maintain what I would call a relaxed attentiveness. So let me give you an analogy for that. If you have a camera and you're turning the lens to get a sharp picture, if you under focus, it's going to be blurry. And in meditation, under focus is a little bit too tired, nodding off. You want to give it a little bit more energy to remain attentive. But by the same token, if you over focus in the other direction, the image is still blurry, and that over focus is kind of trying too hard, being wired a little bit. And so that's the relaxed attentiveness that we're going for in meditation. Now, let me just take a second to say why to meditate. The Florida Bar started about 3-4 years ago, a wellness campaign. They had an issue in the Florida Bar Journal, a whole issue touting the benefits of meditation. I don't have to go into that. I think you're sold on that. I'll just say, for me personally, litigating some very, very high profile cases. When I was at the tail end of the Terri Schiavo case, we were doing appeals in the federal courts, an appeal a day, where an appeal is filed, you get a briefing schedule at noon, the initial brief's due at 4 p.m., the answer brief's due at 9 p.m., the reply brief at 11 a.m., they'd issue a decision in the morning, and you have 1 hour for reconsideration, rehearing, and we're doing these appeals day after day. And I can just say, for me, along with the other stressors of that case, meditation was such a valuable practice to have. Allowed me just to deeply relax and deeply center myself. I don't know how I could have sustained that without that. And the thing is that there's an old saying, an adage: you don't start to dig the well for water when your house is on fire. You want to have that well and that water available for when you need it to put the fire out. So in that metaphor, in all the fires, eruptions, crises that happen in our practice, in our life, you want to have that resource available that allows you to relax, remain centered, be more effective for your clients, for your family, in doing what you have to do at less of a personal cost to you. I mean, we know what it is like hitting our head against the wall when you have a deadline and you have to do it. But there are ways to meet those demands much more effectively the more centered you are. So I encourage you, and it may not be meditation for you, it could be Tai Chi or something else does it for you, but have that practice and have that asset available to you when you really need it. Finally, do the lawyers say finally? Do they really mean it? Finally. This is about your direct experience. This is about what you directly encounter. So put aside what you may have heard or what you know or what people have tell you or what I tell you. This is about trust yourself and what you do. This is your time, your experience, and make the most of it. Okay, so having said all that, with the pep talk done, we're going to first do a simple bodily centering, body meditation. So close your eyes. That's my suggestion. It minimizes external distractions. Close your eyes. Feel your body in the chair. And just take a moment to contrast all that talking with silence. Now, feel the sensation of the feet against the floor, or the feet against the inner soles of your shoes or sandals. Just see it. It may be a sensation of throbbing a little bit. You might notice that it's a lighter sensation against the toes, a little heavier on the ball of the feet. A little smoother on the heel. Notice also that the sensation is not static. It's fluid, kind of moves, it morphs. Remember, there's nothing to do. You're not creating anything. You're not doing anything. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. There's just sensation. You don't have to do anything to make it happen. It's just there. Now bring your attention to the back of your hands. Now, when I say back of the hands, you may get a mental image of the back of your hands. That's just a thought. But what does it feel like? Can you see the sensation where the air touches the back of the hands? Does it feel a little wet, cool? Again, is it static? Is it moving? Do you have to do anything to see that? Or is it just there? And if you look closely, are there two objects, the air and the back of your hand? Or is this just one sensation? Can you discriminate where the air ends and the back of the hand begins? Now just notice there may be some sounds around you. Sound of the heat or air conditioning. Sound of a car going by outside. Again, there's sound and the knowing of the sound. Is there any difference between the two? Can you find a place where the sound ends and the knowing of it begins? Or is there just sound? I'll just take a moment to see your breath. Again, nowhere to go, nothing to do. We're not making anything happen. You may feel the sensation of the abdomen rising and falling with the breath, or the sensation of the air against the nose. All of these sensations sense perceptions just happening, almost like random events. Within a space. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So we took, I think, 6 minutes, 6 or 7 minutes to do that. And I hope you experienced how deeply relaxed and how quickly you can deeply unwind in just such a short period of time. So when I created this round of meditation for lawyers 3 years ago, I was looking at a word. Hopefully you are seeing the word authenticity on the screen. Is that so, Chelsea?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. And so I was interested in terms of teaching meditation to lawyers and how this relates to the practice of law, as to the word authenticity came up. And acting from, I would describe authenticity is acting from your source, your center, your core. And we associate that with the truth. And so why? There are a number of reasons why authenticity is valued, and we'll talk about some of them. But just practically speaking, if you've done jury work, you know that juries have a very remarkable collective common sense, and they know when you're feeding them a line. And we know when we're being fed a line. We don't have to have the vacuum cleaner salesman knock on our door and say our life will be transformed if we buy the vacuum to know that that's not so. And so how do we know authenticity when we see it? Is because we are intimately aware of our own inauthenticity, and we can spot inauthenticity. And so authenticity is acting from that center, from your core. We can call it being yourself. And I have found as an attorney that that is one of the most effective ways of practicing law. And the decisions that arise from that core, that center, the actions that arise from them usually are more effective. And there's much less stress and anxiety. And let me give you a couple examples. Number one, acting authentically, being who you are yourself, is relaxing, because you don't have to do anything to be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be yourself. Yourself is your default position. There's a relaxation too, because you can't lose it. So there's a relief in being who you are, as compared to pretending. And pretense, I call pretense the preamble to tension, because when you are pretending to be what you're not, you're, number one, you have to expend more energy to do that. And number two, there's an anxiety, there's a unease, a fear that, oh my God, I'll be discovered that I'm really not what I'm pretending. Oh my God, if the judge only knew that I'm not as smart as I'm pretending to be. Or, oh, I hope no one caught that, because if they catch me on it, how am I going to explain that? So in pretending, in that pretense, it's anxiety producing. So making decisions, acting from who you are and who you are rather than you're pretending to be, is much more relaxing, much less stress producing. So you can say, well, George, how does that relate? That sounds good in theory, but how does that relate to practicing law? Well, I'll just give you a couple of examples. I had a case where, in litigation, where my client's position was weak, the other client's position was strong. It was a weird probate case where the deceased relative of my client's, all his money were going to go to people who never heard of him. And I won't go into the details why. So we had a thin read of of a claim. And I had a conversation with the other attorney. And you've had these conversations before if you're in litigation or you're negotiating something. One attorney, the opposing attorney, spent 15 minutes telling me about all the weak points of my case and why I was going to lose and why I had no chance and this and that. And when she stopped, what she expected to hear was my 15-minute recitation of, oh, no, 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 you know, we have the strength, and if we do win, even though maybe our odds are on the slim side, it's going to be catastrophic for your clients and all the strong points of my case. And out of nowhere, I said to her, can you understand how my clients feel having all their loved one relatives' money go to people who never heard of them? I just said, can you understand how my clients feel? And there was just silence at the other end. That was the last thing that the opposing attorney expected to hear. I didn't plan to say that. That was not a strategy. That was not a strategy. Oh, this will be an effective thing to say. It just came. It was the most appropriate, effective thing. We eventually settled that case. And so that's one example, you know, and acting from having the ability to respond effectively, responsibility, doesn't have to be silent. I had a case where we're in trial and a witness for the other side who I deposed 2 weeks before completely changed. The witness changed their testimony in its entirety, 180 degrees. So when the judge said cross-examination, I picked up her deposition and I slammed it on the counsel's table. I didn't think of doing that. I didn't say, hey, this would be very effective. The judge's eyes open, the jury's eyes open. Said, gee, this Felos, he's pretty good. That's a pretty calm demeanor. Something must be happening here. But there was something about my there was an innate sense of justice that was offended, that the oath means something. And so that happened to be a very effective way. The most effective thing I can do, which was not a stratagem, which was not a plan. So the more you encounter, are familiar with, know the territory of your source, your center, your core, you find how it's easier just to be yourself, where you don't have to you don't have to act a certain way, you don't have to show up as a certain way. And in practicing law, that tends to be very, very effective. So in society, we value that authenticity. Okay, I should be back on the screen. Shakespeare said, this was Polonius to Laertes in Hamlet, to thy own self be true. So we inherently recognize the value of that. And in today's language, we would say, get real. So in our next 2 meditations, we're going to be approaching and encountering more what is real. What is that center? What is that core? And here's a couple definitions of reality. That which cannot not exist. Or here's even kind of a better one. That which doesn't change. Now you might say, hey, George, change happens all the time. That's the one constant. So let's see if there is anything that doesn't change. So in this next meditation, we're going to look more precisely at what the foreground consists of, because seeing that in a different way allows you to shift to the background more readily. So there are three and only three things in the foreground: bodily sensations, sense perceptions, and thoughts. Bodily sensations is the sensation of the feet against the floor, the sensation of the air against the back of the hands, an ache in the body. Sense perceptions are what we see, hear, smell. And our thoughts, I call them kind of subtle sense perceptions. Our thoughts come in the flavor of the senses. Some thoughts are visual. You see a picture in your thoughts. Some thoughts are oral. You hear something. You can taste, you can touch in your thoughts. So the thoughts kind of come in the flavor of sense perceptions. But those are the only three things that are in the foreground. So, guys, you are doing great. You are doing great. Let's take a little moment to get ready in your seat. We're going to dive into our next meditation. Close your eyes. Just for a second, centered in, feel your rump against the seat. The feet against the floor. Now notice the sound of my voice. That's hearing. I hear the AC unit, the HVAC, that's hearing. There's a thought, oh, a reminder, I have to draft that pleading this afternoon. That's a thought. I feel my heart beating. That's a bodily sensation. I feel my hands on my lap. That's a bodily sensation. I have a thought, oh my God, why did I ever take this webinar? That's just a thought. Hearing my words, sense perception. That's all there is in the foreground. Now notice first there was no sound of my voice, now there's sound, and the sound ends. A thought appears, is present, and then it dissolves. Same with bodily sensations. Notice that each of those has a beginning. First, they're not there. Where was the thought before you thought it? It wasn't there. It arose, it was present, and then it's gone. The same for sense perceptions, bodily sensations. All three, notice for yourself, share the common characteristic of not being there, arising, being present, dissolving, and then gone, not being there again. They're like almost clouds passing in the sky. Just imagine yourself as the sky. And the clouds have infinite types of formations, infinite number of thoughts or feelings or perceptions you can have. But they're all moving through space, present for only a moment. Now, as you are the sky, and these appearances come and go, ask yourself, does it matter to the sky what shape or formation the cloud is? Do dark clouds hurt the sky? Does the sky, can it be injured or damaged by a thunderstorm? Just stay as the sky. Notice also is there a different place where thoughts are known as opposed to where sense perceptions are known or bodily sensations? Is there a different part of the sky where, or in your knowing, is there like a compartment? There's a room, oh, that's the room where I know thoughts. Oh, that's the room where I know bodily sensations. Oh, that's the room I know sense perceptions. Or are all three known in the same way? Just allow yourself to remain as the sky, the knowingness of the sky. And deeply know that to the sky, it doesn't matter what the form, shape, color of any cloud, any appearances. Without even asking yourself, know the repose, the rest of the sky. And slowly open your eyes. So in that meditation, we started by looking at the three types of objects in the foreground, and then began to see that they're really not very different at all. There are different fish swimming in the ocean, sure, but the ocean is the same. There are different clouds in the sky, different occurrences in the sky. The sky remains the same. So that's a hint. The sky is the metaphor to that source, that core that we want to directly encounter, and which we will in our last meditation. And so to talk about that in our last meditation, we're going to give it a word. And the word is awareness. I mean, we've called it core, center, source. For purposes of our discussion, since we can't discuss it without giving it a name, we'll call it awareness. So in the next meditation, we're going to look to see, what is that awareness? That center, that source that we all kind of take for granted, which underpins our existence. And I'm just going to give you a couple of hints of how to do that. And one is to adopt a posture of non-interference. Okay, what does that mean? Adopt a posture of non-interference. Well, how do we interfere with what occurs, the foreground? Well, we judge, we comment, we have a thought arises in and of itself. Well, I like it, I don't like it. It should be better, it should be this, it should be that. I wish it would stay longer. I wish it would go away sooner. We have a comment about everything. It's like, if we don't give our take on reality, the earth will stop spinning. And we all do that. And there's, that's nothing wrong with the mind. Is a comparison machine. It's a judgment. It's a judgment machine. Now you could say, George, my God, it's impossible. How could I ever stop commenting, judging, opining about something? And the thing is, you don't. All you have to do is see it. Just the seeing of it dissipates its power, its distraction. Let's call it, let's not empower by calling it power. Dissipates its distraction. So, let's talk more specifically at like and dislike. Like and dislike are both really preference form of aversion. Dislike, aversion, oh, we don't want it. We're pushing it away. Like in the terms of desire, greed, attachment, or wanting is also aversion because we're afraid of losing it. So they're both kind of generating out of fear. I don't want it. I got to get rid of it. I need to keep it. And so I'm afraid I'll lose it. All these things, the commenting, the like, the dislike, we could just call them resistance. And non-interference is a posture of non-resistance. And you say, well, it's impossible. But again, I think George is crazy. That's a judgment. Well, okay, so that's a judgment. I shouldn't be judging. Well, that's a judgment about the judgment. So don't worry about this at all. These are just seeds. Don't even, just let them kind of sink in. Don't worry about the words too much. we're adopting a posture of non-resistance. And let me give you a visual here. The resistance in the mind is like this jar on the left. And Chelsea, we're seeing the jars, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. The one on the left has all that sediment in it. And resistance is like taking a spoon and trying to push the sediment down to get rid of it, but all it does is agitate it more. The non-resistance, without agitating it more, it just naturally begins to fall. Until in the jar on the right, you can see there's clear seeing. Again, we didn't get rid of anything. We didn't get rid of the sediment. We just stopped agitating it. And that's the posture of non-resistance. And another way to say it is welcoming or benign indifference. And let me give you two analogies that I hope will be helpful. One is a mirror. If you have a mirror and there's you put a blue vase in front of it, it reflects blue. If you put a pink vase, the mirror doesn't say, I don't like pink. I'm not going to reflect it. It's going to reflect it anyway. It may not like it. It welcomes everything that's put before it. Another helpful analogy is like a flat screen TV. You don't notice the flat screen. You notice the screen when there's no picture on. You walk in your living room, you see the TV, you see the screen. But when the movie is playing, you forget that the screen is there because you're so taken up with the story in the picture. But it doesn't matter to the screen whether you have a World War II scene with a million tons of bombs exploding or you have a sweet romance. It makes no difference to the screen what's projected on it. In the same way, in the awareness that we're going to look at in the next meditation, there's that attitude of welcoming in knowing and seeing that it doesn't matter what shape the cloud is, whether the thought's distressing or not distressing, or pleasant or unpleasant, it makes no difference to the sky. It makes no difference to the screen. It makes no difference to the mirror. It makes no difference to this awareness. Okay. Okay, guys, I meant that for everyone. I hope that's not too out of date. Gals, guys, everyone, people. We're in for our last meditation. You're doing great. One more to go. Put your shoulders up, have them come down. Close your eyes. Feel the sensation of the feet against the floor, your butt against the chair, sound of my voice. They're just appearances. They're just mini happenings that arise and come and go. To use our metaphor before, kind of become the sky again. The sensation of my hat on my head. It's just sensation. Wasn't there, is here, soon be gone. Sensation of the breath, little pull in my belly, comes and goes. Ask yourself, does it matter to that which is aware that which knows all these appearances? Does it matter to that awareness what those appearances are? Just truly look and say, are all welcomed? Now, look, see this awareness. Does it have a boundary? Is there a line you can go to, a fence, where this awareness is on one side, but not on the other? Do it. Look. Is there anywhere where this awareness is not? Don't take my word for it. There are sensations and appearances within it. Does this awareness have a shape or form? Certainly whatever appears within it has form, shape, shapes change. But that which knows the infinite shapes and forms, does it have a shape? Is it a triangle, a square, an orb, an ellipse? Or is it shapeless as well as boundless? Does it have a color? Now, if your eyes are closed, you may see a little light flickering behind your eyelids. Color of orange or yellow or red. There are infinite colors that can appear within this awareness. But does the awareness have a color? Does the awareness have a religious persuasion? Is there anything spiritual or religious about it? Is it Christian or Hindu or Muslim or Jewish, or is it totally free of any concept, of any dogma, of any thought system, of any belief system? Now look very closely. That which is aware of my words right now, does it have a gender? Or is it genderless or non-gender or mixed gender? Or does gender have no meaning to this awareness? Are all possibilities which may arise contained within it? But is it affected by any of them? And last, ask yourself, is this awareness subject to time? Is there any time you know of in your direct experience where this awareness was not present? Now you may say, oh, well, I was born one day, maybe before that, but that's just the thought. In your direct knowing, can you point to any time that this awareness was absent, or is it not subject to time? So take a few moments just to directly be. To know who you are at your source, your core, your center. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So just a couple things before we start with the questions and answers. I advise you to meditate, even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes every day. It's like any skill. It takes a while to learn. Try it for a month, even if you're only doing it 5, 10 minutes on a daily basis, and see what happens in your life. See what you notice. Give it a shot. You can contact me. I'm a resource here. You can contact me anytime you want on the website meditationforlawyers.org, which is our new website we launched last week. There are lots of goodies on it. But you can contact me, you can email me, you can call me with any questions you have about meditation. Also, we're about to launch drop-in meditations twice a month. That information is on the website to support your continuing practice. And we do have 2 weekend retreats for CLE up in Asheville, North Carolina, one in April and one in October. And all that information will be soon on our website. This will be recorded. You'll receive the recording. Listen to it again. Also on our YouTube channel, there are some meditation segments. If you feel that, gee, I need to hear somebody guide me, then the 3 meditations that we did today together are are in a compressed segment. There's a 2 or 3 minute introduction, which you could just go through, and you can have about 15-minute guided meditation. So keep doing it. And if this is the start for you, then we're here to help, and I hope you will find the benefit in meditation that I have throughout my life. Okay, so we are now ready for the questions and answers. So let me see if we have no questions now. So I'm not going to give up on questions and answers. So let's start. Usually when 1 or 2 questions come up, they generate follow-up questions. So remember, you can write your question. You can write your question and in the Q&A. You don't have to. You can be anonymous. I won't mention your name. But the questions tend to be helpful and generate some stuff that you just can't compress into such a short-term seminar. Okay, so we do have a question. Okay, we have a question. How long do you meditate for each day, and at what time of the day? For me, I meditate in the morning, first thing. And that works for me for this reason. If I do something, usually I get out of bed, brush my teeth, and I'll meditate. For me, if I check a message or go in the kitchen, get something to drink, then somebody says something, I'm distracted, and before I know it, a half hour has gone by. I don't have time to meditate anymore. I have to get going with what I'm doing, and so that just works. That just works for me. Whatever time, just experiment. Whatever time is most conducive for you in your practice, then work on that time. Also, it's helpful to do mini meditations during the day. You're at the DMV. You're on hold with the IRS, so you have a little bit of time, or you're on a line at the checkout counter. There's nothing really you have to do at that time, and in those moments, it's just, again, you're de-emphasizing the foreground and noticing the background. And in noticing the background, the more you do that, the more easy it is to make that shift. And then while you're doing that, you're just the sky. You're enjoying. You're enjoying the happenings. Somebody's talking in the distance. Then maybe there's a kid screaming, or not screaming, or cooing, or this or that. But you're just there enjoying the fabulous diversity of what creation creates, and we witness. But it's not personal to you. It's just like as it's impersonal to the sky. So that you can do that shift anytime where you have a few minutes, and the more you meditate and the more facile you become at making that shift, then you do these mini meditations all the day and all the time, and you just realize that you're meditating, whether you're sitting down or standing up or doing it formally or not. Now, another thing about the meditation practice is you don't want it to be a practice. Remember, we talked about the currency of meditation is interest. So you do it because you're interested in doing it. If it becomes rote, if it becomes, I got to do it, or something like that, don't do it. I had a teacher who once said, hey, when you feel like that, have some ice cream or watch the basketball game. I'm not saying give in to every little minor resistance. But if truly you don't have that interest, it's the interest you have in looking inward. And I think that's the most fascinating, thing in life, is to discover, to see who we really are. That's the interest that propels you. So what I'm saying is, you don't want to make that practice, you don't want to make it rote. So the length of time, you can say, I'm going to do it for 5-10 minutes. If it's longer, it's fine. But the guiding force here is your interest here to do it. Okay, we have a question. Do you recommend a meditation app for guided meditations like Headspace or Calm? I don't personally. My wife does. She uses one before for sleeping. Before when she goes to bed, she'll put one of those meditation apps on. After I started meditating, I really had no interest in speaking during meditation. That's not to say that I haven't been in a seminar or program and there's a guided meditation like we had today, and I don't find it helpful. But as a whole, I'm not particularly interested in that. That's why I haven't used them. So let me just give you a couple tips about all the resources that you can find online. And there's a lot. There's a lot you can find online. There are different meditations, meditation systems. What we did today is, you may not find a lot of meditations, let me put it this way, are, oh, how do I relax and how do I reduce stress? I mean, here it's more philosophy that when you directly encounter your core, all those other things that people look to meditate for, stress reduction, calm, peace, better relationships, they're to use a legal term, they're ancillary benefits. They all naturally flow the more you rest with who you really are. But in looking at meditations online, just use your judgment. Be discerning, be discerning. And then you say, well, what works for me? Is this beneficial for me? It may be beneficial for you for a while, and then perhaps not. So use your judgment, use your discernment. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff out there. I'm just not too familiar. I'm not too familiar with it. Okay, so we'll just take a moment to see whether any of that has prompted any other questions. So the remaining participants, if you have another question, we'll just take.
George, we
Yes.
did have one come up. The question was, do you happen to offer one-on-one mentoring or coaching for attorneys?
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. You'll find that on our website, that there is one-on-one mentoring and coaching and meditation instruction. And on the website, when you press the box, it says, contact me and let me know what you're interested in. And then there's a contact sheet on the contact page on the screen. Just send me an email, or you can call me and just say, hey, George, this is kind of what's happening in my practice, in my life. And yeah, be happy to do that. So that's the way to start that process. We'll connect, and then yeah, we do offer that. Okay, I think gee, I haven't gotten any questions this time about, gee, I have insomnia, will meditation help me fall asleep, or what do I do with this particularly obnoxious attorney I'm litigating with, or many other questions, but maybe for another time. So I just want to say thank you so much. It's truly an honor and privilege to be able to share this with you. And I hope to meet and talk to some of you in the future. So I think that's a wrap. Chelsea, you can stop recording, and we will close the webinar, and you'll be receiving the recording in 2-3 days. Take care.